Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Healing Our Children 2018 World Summit. I'm Alison Morris from Full Potential Parenting and your host for the summit. And I'm pleased to have you back for this first day of the summit. So I want to introduce to you my guest today. His name is Emanuel Zevallos, and he is an emotion and body code practitioner. And we're going to talk all about the emotion code. He and his wife founded their company Coding Alternative, I think actually just a little over a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago. And what really drew me to Emanuel was that he does a lot of work using the emotion code and body code, working with children and with teens. So many of us get to the point, especially as our kids get older, where they're not so interested in going to therapies and appointments and being value assessed and all that kind of stuff anymore. So always looking for other ways that we can work with them and help them that they might actually enjoy. And so I want to welcome you, Emanuel, to the summit. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really glad that we're here, and I'm glad we're connecting.
Yeah, absolutely. So the emotion code, I don't know if all of you have seen this book. The emotion code was developed by Dr. Bradley Nelson. Gosh, do you remember how many years ago now? It's not new.
Yes, I think it's been around I think they celebrated their 10-year anniversary just like last year.
Okay. And, he's brought this to just, I don't know, hundreds of people now, probably all across the world. I'm trying to remember. It's been a while since I read the book. But as I recall, he considers this sort of a download from God, right? That This was sort of an inspiration that he got to try this healing, a specific code for healing. And he immediately went out and started making use of it, giving it, trying it out on different people, was really amazed by the results he was seeing, and then started very carefully putting together a whole protocol for it, and then trainings, and it's a extensive organization at this point. When did you receive your training, before we get into sort of what it is, and how were you drawn to it initially?
Yeah, so basically they say, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And really, I think it was an accumulation of three different things. Like I said, my mother was an oncologist, my father was an oncologist, but my mother was very open to holistic health, acupuncture, chakras, different things like that. So I think that her vibrations kind of enabled me to be open to this type of work at some point. She's passed away though in 2011, but to this day, I think that really intrigued me to be open to things like that. And it was actually really out there to even think about doing some type of energy healing modality. In fact, the emotion code is the only thing that I studied. There was no previous background. It was literally and I was looking for a self-development book. I wasn't looking for an energy healing book. But I think it was three things. One is it had to do with relationships. I was always confused why there's such a high divorce rate, people having issues with that. And books were coming in regards to philosophy, but that doesn't change the ratio. The number is still there. Like, why are we so bad at relationships? And very similar to Dr. Brad, he started the emotion code due to the fact that he was a chiropractor for 20 years, 20 plus 25 years. In the brick and mortar, business, meeting with people, and he saw a lot of incurable diseases. And my mother was dealing with cancer, pancreatic cancer. After I read the emotion code, I started wishing I was there. I wish I knew about the book before she passed away, because I knew that part of the causes that she probably had, or the reason why she had those symptoms, probably had to do with trapped emotions and heart walls and energetic imbalances in her body. And the reason why I'm so passionate about kids is because, I read the book in July 2015, but I got certified in May 2016. So why did it take so long? It was because I had a heart wall. And so I'll probably talk about it later, but I was really unclear with what my mission in life was. Until someone cleared my heart wall back in April 2016, I really started getting driven to get certified, and I had this newfound passion that came. And in regards to kids, I've always wished that somebody would have worked on me when I was a kid, because I was also thrown to the psychology just because I write haikus when I'm very young, it doesn't mean I'm depressed, but my parents were very concerned that I was kind of melancholic. So I wish a practitioner would have worked with me. And so I think that's why whenever I work with any of my clients, I always say, do you have 30 kids? I'll give them all a free session, just because if I can make just a little dent in that child, then that would mean a lot to me, so.
So let's go back to the beginning. The concept underlying the emotion code and the body code work is that emotions get trapped in our body and then manifest in different ways as symptoms, whether it's struggling with relationships, as you mentioned, whether it's even a disease state, just stress, a pain in a part of the body, just in all sorts of different ways. And that there is a way to ask the body itself what's going on and whether it's ready to release this imbalance so that it can heal, right? Is that a fair summary of the...
Very, very fair summary. That was a good, very good summary.
Now, and again, I realize that for some people, that sounds a little crazy.
Sure.
The idea, although if you've been watching the summit for years, we talk about different energy modalities all the time. I myself do EFT work, which is a slightly similar concept about emotions getting trapped. And really just that, we're made of energy and that we absorb energy. And I don't know if maybe trapped is maybe a kind of funny word, because I think energy is always moving, but it sort of visually, it helps to think of it as trapped, as in it's not able to kind of
release itself,
and move elsewhere, so that it's stuck in the body. So how can you give us a little rundown on how it works and how it's released, and then we can maybe talk too about some exciting shifts that you've seen in clients that you've worked with.
Sure. So Dr. Brad, the reason why, again, this whole thing started because during his chiropractic work, he started noticing that many of his clients that needed adjustments as a chiropractor, they also had incurable diseases. And he was just kind of, he felt a lot of compassion for them. And he went literally to prayer. He's one of the only energy healers that kind of, you can tell he believes in the Lord, he believes in God. And, a lot of energy healers kind of keep that out just because they want to be very universally accepted. But Dr. Brad is not ashamed of his faith, and but it doesn't mean that he only works with Christians. He works with everybody. But he believes it's like that he has a calling to bring this to this earth. In fact, it's very interesting, his history of like how he was in denial of that he thought, the first thing he thought was that it was only going to be him, and he was providing the service. Later on, he found out that divinely that other people need to learn the way he does this, and that anybody can learn how to heal themselves and others. So that was a new thing that he never thought he would have ever heard. And what's interesting is that we're all energy, obviously, right? And every organ, every part of your body has certain frequencies. Even thought has a frequency. And what he started noticing is that when he started praying, asking for help, he realized that there's these energies the size of a tennis ball or cantaloupe, that our organs are actually frequency generators. And this is ancient culture stuff. He says energy healing isn't new. Energy healing it was actually the first form of healing, but the pendulum is now coming back full swing. And he says, obviously big pharma and these big medical things, they kind of covered it up, and he says now it's kind of, people are getting sick and tired of being sick and tired. And we live in a world technically of masking the problem, not fixing what they call the underlying imbalance. So what happens is you're feeling these emotions from these organs. Your different organs are creating these certain emotions you feel. And they have all these different certain frequencies. The problem is if it's overcharged emotion, like deep sadness, deep anger, deep frustration, then these energies the size of a tennis ball or cantaloupe can get stuck near the organ that created it. So for example, liver is anger, bitterness, guilt, hatred, resentment. And so if you have a fatty liver, or if you drink a lot, what comes out usually? Anger, bitterness, guilt, hatred, resentment. I love using the example of Christopher Reeve's wife, who most people know that, Christopher Reeve became a paraplegic. He was a very handsome actor who played Superman. And his wife, unfortunately, died of lung cancer. No one talks about her as much because, she's not as famous as he was. What's interesting is that she has no history of lung cancer, and she never smoked a cigarette her whole life. So in the Western world, they have no idea why she died of lung cancer. But in the emotion code world, Dr. Brad theorizes that the certain emotion that it gets attached to the lung is grief. And I always ask my clients, what does this make sense to you? Do you think she grieved when Christopher Reeve passed away? Or do you think she started grieving when she saw the man that she married become a paraplegic? And my answer is that I think it's when he became a paraplegic, is when she started the grieving process of like, I've lost my husband. Now I just have to take care of him all the time. And when you start attracting trapped emotions, it could lead to disease, and then it could lead to cancer. So not all cancer, the culprit was a trapped emotion, but all cancer has some type of trapped emotion attached to it. And so so trapped emotions cause 3 problems. Number one is, he said like the average human has between 300 to 400 trapped emotions in their body. They don't even know it. But what's really great is muscle testing has been around for decades. It's something that doctors use, psychologists use. It's something that's very well known that, you can ask certain questions to the body. And Dr. Brad uses that method to find out certain questions, which is, do you have trapped emotions? And the body would answer yes. I can walk up to anybody in the street and they wouldn't even know. I would say, can you just hold your arm up very strong and let me just ask you questions? And they would answer positive for a trapped emotion, even though they don't even know what the definition is. If I ask them, do you have a heart wall? 93% of people will hold that strong. And they have like, why is my arm strong? Is because their subconscious knows what a heart wall is and what trapped emotions are. But the 3 side effects of trapped emotions are, number one is it tears away at the tissue over time of your body. So he's had a lot of success with fibromyalgia and rheumatoid arthritis clients. Number 2 is that it could cause many bodily symptoms, sinuses, pain in the body. There's a lot of malfunctions in the body that could also cause by trapped emotions, but also emotional symptoms like anxiety, phobias, depression, PTSD, things like that. And the last thing is it also makes you very reactive. So if you have let's say you have 6 trapped emotions of anger in your body, it makes you very easy to fall into anger over and over and over again. And these trapped emotions can come from either you feeling an emotion very strongly, you absorbing an emotion from someone else. For example, if someone feels it very strongly next to you, you can actually absorb that energy and now it's stuck in you. That could also happen in the womb. The mother is feeling very, some mothers are like, why are my kids acting like this? I would rather ask the question, what happened between first trimester to second and third trimester? Because I'm telling you, the mother probably had an emotional roller coaster and the child can absorb these energies in the womb. I've seen it multiple times. And the last thing is also a heavy one, is called inherited emotions. So it's scientifically proven in the Scientific American, they use Jewish Holocaust victims. Their great-great-great-great-grandkids have PTSD, depression, anxiety. And why is that? They don't know why they have that. They also tested on rats. That they would cause a shock in a rat, and then what would happen is that when the child came, they put him in the same container area. The rat would go to the same area and would get stunned in the same area that the mother was shocked earlier. So there's energies being passed down that also can be passed down to humans. So that's kind of a little general overview of trapped emotions.
Well, yeah, there has been a lot of really fascinating research done recently about intergenerational transmission of trauma, specifically. And of course, a lot of the folks who are watching this are parents of kids who are adopted, who may have had in utero stress or trauma, or just the fact of adoption is in itself a trauma. Or even if it's a biological child, maybe it was a difficult birth, or maybe there was a divorce during the pregnancy, who knows, all sorts of things. Yeah. And this is not, of course, to blame mothers for their kids' issues, because of course we all got stuff from our from our own lineage as well. It's funny. Whoops, losing my earpiece. My introduction actually to the emotion code and the body code, which was really my introduction to any energy work at all, was actually through a Catholic nun who took on that work. And I was actually working with her. We were working with her on my child with using a different modality, but she introduced this as well. And, at first and she did demonstrate muscle testing to me, which I had never heard of before at the time. This is probably 8 years ago now, maybe something like that. And I was stunned. She had me lie on a massage table. I held my arm out. She asked me a question that, the answer was yes. And my arm stayed out. She asked me a question. The answer was no. And for the life of me, I could not hold my arm out. And, when people see it demonstrated, especially on themselves, it's a lot easier to come to an understanding of what's going on. And so anyway, I just wanted to bring that up because I think it's interesting. Again, sometimes people have the mistaken notion that energy work is anti-religious, or maybe some people even feel so strongly that it's some sort of an abomination or something. I mean, but no, these are all they work all well together, and there's absolutely nothing that's incompatible between doing energy work and being religious, of whatever religion you happen to be. So anyway, can you maybe walk us through what a session sort of would look like here? Especially, again, with these kids, we're talking about often a lot of anxiety, a lot of behavior issues. So they may have a lot of outbursts, be very irritable, really anxious, like 0 to no window of tolerance for anything going not their way. Mm-hmm. They feel a great need to be in control at all times. Of course, some of these kids are on the autism spectrum, so they have all manner of different issues with their social engagement, plus not to mention physical issues. And we should spend some time talking about the body code too, as opposed to the emotion code. But what does it sort of look like as you're working with somebody? And I don't know if it makes sense for it to just like do one little experiment on me. I mean, I'm fine with that if you want to. Right. Find a trapped emotion and see what we can do, because I'm sure I have plenty. I don't know if that would make sense or not.
Yeah.
Or we can just talk through it.
Oh, no, yeah. So, I wouldn't mind. Basically, it would be very simple. What I'll do is, I'll tell you kind of an example of me working with a child real quick. It's like in like quick 2 minutes. And then I can release a trapped emotion from you so you can see what it looks like. How about that? So the first thing is, what I love working about children is that there's you can do it via proxy. So if, for example, if you're the mother or the person in charge of the adopted son or daughter, they could, as long as I have permission from you, I can work with your child. It's a very beautiful thing that the child could be anywhere and still receive the healing. This is why it's highly, highly convenient. Now, the mother probably knows if the child's open to some type of help. Just in general, like maybe they're more spiritually astute, or maybe, like they're just like, okay, mom, like I'm open to that. Or like they have a lot of confidence in what the mom's recommendation is. Then I would suggest, let's see if they're open to meeting with me, right? But most cases, sometimes what I'm always concerned about is telling the child that they need to meet with someone. And then in the back of their subconscious, they're thinking, what? Something's wrong with me. You see? And that's what I'm afraid of sometimes. So I always tell them, say, you're the mother, if you brought something up like this, would they be closed or would they open? Like most mothers know, they just know their child. And if it's, but I always feel like it leans more towards that. If we're already talking about multiple symptoms and issues that they're having, that they're probably closed. And it's okay, because they just don't know what's good for them. But then what the mother could do is they can sit in on the session and just what I do is an introduction session. I would say, can you tell me 2 symptoms that they're dealing with? And as you mentioned, the body code, it can get way deeper if they're having autism or food aversions or allergies or things like that. We can get into that. That's in the body code. But usually with the emotion code, you'd be very surprised. 80% of the issues they're having are just trapped emotions. But the body code covers that 20%, where it's like it's deeper things. That there's an organ imbalance, there's vaccine toxicity, there's just all that stuff in there that needs to be removed energetically. And then if push comes to shove, it needs to be also some type of supplement or something needs to be taken, which the body can recommend exactly how much they need and things like that. So for example, with you, I could just, if we connected real quick, and like I said, obviously, it would take me longer if we were like, let's say, focus on the pain, but I could just say like real quick, what, if we can release a trapped emotion from you right now, So what I usually do is I take, 10 seconds just to ask for some help. So if you and I, we just did that right now, just in our mind, we'll just kind of like, just ask that our session's inspired. And then what I'll do is I'll just say, is there a trapped emotion we can release? And then I'll just release it. And then that way you can kind of see what it's like. Okay. So, so we'll just do that real quick. Let's just ask for some help. Okay, and then what I can do is give me your, I don't know if you want to disclose this, but give me your age again.
I always get it wrong, but I'm 53. 53, yeah.
Okay, you don't look 53, so that's good. So you look a lot younger. So, all right, so Alison, last name's Morris, right?
It is.
Okay, yeah, so 53. So I'll just ask one simple thing. And so there's a chart, there's an emotion code chart, and I don't know if you guys can see this, but basically there's about 60 emotions in here that get basically created through the frequency of these different organs. And he, I always ask Dr. Brad, I was like, how does this work? The fact that someone hasn't seen this chart, but I'm muscle testing them and they're answering yes and positive, but they never have to see this. Like I always ask them that. It's interesting. He said, I know this is divinely inspired because he says it's already built in their system. It's already built in. So wouldn't it make sense? Just like we as human beings, when we build a car, what do we build? We build a checking system, like a thing that kind of like the gauge is going down and things are going we do it as humans, we wouldn't think that, you don't think a creator would have created something where we have a way to kind of check on ourselves to make sure that we're doing okay and that we're healing. It makes sense if you believe that. And so he just said, he's like, it's already built in there. It's like, that's why when we're working with them, they're just accessing information that they don't know. That's all it is. I thought that was very interesting. Anyway, so I'm just going to ask, is there a trapped emotion that we can release right now? And so your body said yes. So muscle testing could be, there's so many, this is called the hand solo. There's a links thing. And basically because we're not together, this is the part that kind of gets people like, okay, this is a long leap of faith. This is like, how is Emanuel connected with Alison? And the reality is that it's very similar to like a telephone phone call. Like most of us don't even know how that happens, right? But the way this work happens is that I can just do something on my behalf. So I put my needs to the side just for the purpose of healing. And instead of muscle testing myself, I start muscle testing your body and asking you questions. Now, I'm not asking you for the lottery ticket numbers. I'm not looking to see what vacation you went to last time, because that doesn't work in this situation. It's more of just literally for the intention of healing purposes. Again, why wouldn't a loving creator give you the ability to help someone out of the state, out of the country? And for me, it really reminds me that love has no bounds. Love has no bounds. And so I'm muscle testing you from a distance. And instead of for example, if I say, my name is Alison, see, it's very strong now. If I say, my name is Emanuel, no, it's weak. So now at this point, we're just connected, And so, and then at the end of it, it's kind of like hanging up the phone. Like I have to say, so my name is Emanuel. So then I go, my name is Emanuel now. And now it's strong. See, now we're not connected anymore. You see? So you have to make sure you disconnect at the end. Dr. Brad has some funny stories of people that didn't disconnect. And then,
whoops.
Whoops. Yeah. So, but let's connect again. So say, my name is Alison. So yeah, my name is Alison. Very strong. My name is Emanuel. No. So then what I would say is, are there any trapped emotions that you want to release right now? I said yes. So I'm going to go through this chart and I'm going to basically ask, is it column A or column B, even, odd, almost something like that. For mothers that are watching this, or fathers, the interesting thing about this is that the way I kind of prove that this thing works is that I usually focus on pain. Now, we're not going to work with Alison pain because that might take a little bit of time. But if we were typically to do a complimentary session, I would work with the mom first and say, hey, I want you to believe in this first. And what I would do is I say, do you have any tension pain? Guess what a woman always tells me? Of course I've got tension pain. Are you kidding me? And I'm like, where is it? It's like, where is it usually? Here. It's usually the neck, between the shoulder blades. They have pain there. And so then what I say is, well, which one bothers you the most? Oh, the neck. Okay. Then I start asking for trapped emotions that are irritating the tissues around the neck. And once I start releasing them, all of a sudden I go ahead, walk 10 steps, come right back. And all of a sudden they're like, my neck feels amazing. And that's kind of, and then a week will pass by. It's like, my neck still feels amazing. So that is proving to that person that this is real. And then after that, that's when they introduce me with their children, and then I start working with them. So just giving you a heads up, like, it's okay to be skeptical, bring it. But the fact that you meet with someone like me obviously means that you have even like the seed, I'd say the faith of a mustard seed, a little small one. Because if you didn't believe a little bit, then you wouldn't have showed up at all. You see? And so, but yeah, let's just release one trapped emotion real quick. So let's see what I find here. Now we don't have any subject to this. It's just your body's like, yeah, I'm open to release one. So this will give me more peace and comfort. So let's see. So let's see. E. So I'm just asking these questions, column A, column B. Is this even? Is this odd? That's all I'm doing here. Okay. A4. Anger, bitterness, guilt, hatred, resentment, hatred, guilt. So we found bitterness, right? So just a moment where you were bitter about something, right? So then I would say, technically sometimes I don't have to, like if I said, do we need to know the age before we release this? My body's like, no. But I'm like, what if I want to know the age? I'm like, can I ask for the age? I said, yes. Okay, so see, is this 53 years old? No, less than 53, less than 50, less than 40, less than 30. So it's something more than 30, 31, 32, 33. So something around 34, you see? So 34, something might have happened where maybe it was, I don't know if anything recalls in your mind, but maybe it was a job, maybe it was a relationship, maybe something was going on where you had a moment of bitterness. Anything ring a bell around that time? It could be 33, 34.
Yeah, there's a couple possibilities there.
Okay, yeah. So we don't have to mention it. And that's just the cool thing too.
Yeah.
Just like, we don't have to mention it. That's the beautiful thing. You can be the most private person and have a healing and have your neck totally healed and just say, "Yep, I know what that is." And I can even be a smart guy and just say, "Does it have to do with what she's thinking about in her mind?" And your body would say yes or no. You see, so it's kind of cool. Like, you can always keep privacy. We don't have to talk about it. In fact, one of our slogans for our practice is less talk, more healing. Which so I really abide by that. So let's just release it. So this is a magnet. It's just a regular magnet. Dr. Brad says, isn't it funny that he said, isn't it funny that our healing balm or our healing method involves your refrigerator magnet? Like, he says the whole time, or the whole way that we could have healed ourselves is a magnet. Why does he use a magnet? Very interesting, because these trapped emotions are these little energies. And what happens is that as soon as you call it out, like, I'm looking for a trapped emotion, and as soon as you mention the emotion, and sometimes you need the age, sometimes you don't, the energy actually it kind of like floats near the skin, kind of just like floats there waiting. And then what I do is, in Chinese medicine, it's called the governing meridian, and it's this line of energy that goes from the top of my lip all the way back to my spine. So then I use this magnet, because what does a magnet do? Well, put a magnet on a credit card, see what happens. Demagnetizes it. If you put it on a hotel card, what happens? It demagnetizes it. If you put it on a computer long enough, you could ruin a computer if you use magnets strong enough. So all this is just kind of just having the intention, which is, again, energy as well, to release that emotion from your body. And then I just rub it on my governing meridian. Now, even technically, I could rub it. I could even go over it and not even touch my head. And it's just enough. And I don't have to go all the way from this all the way back to my spine. I just have to kind of like run it a little bit. And what happens is, slowly the energy just goes and gets out of your body. That's what happens. It's an extraction process. Now, just to let you know, I'm going to do this real quick. I'm just going to release this bitterness real quick. Okay, so do you release this bitterness? And see, your body said yes. And if I would have talked to you, and we would have been in person, I would have said, do you have this bitterness? If I said the word to you, if I said to you I would have pushed down on your arm would be weak. And just even the word bitterness, your body's like, I have that, and it just goes down. So then I would say, okay, I would put the magnet on your back if we were in person, and then I would say, okay, did we release that trapped emotion? All of a sudden, your arm is strong. You see? And then if I said bitterness, your arm would be like, it still would be strong. It's almost like it's saying I released it, right? What's really interesting, I love this part. I'll just mention this last thing is, so that's what I would do with the children. Is I would say, what symptoms are they having? Oh, they get angry a lot. Okay, so I would say, what symptoms or what trapped emotions are making the child feel angry a lot? Are there trapped emotions that we can release to help the child not be so angry? And then the body would say yes. And then I would go in there and start releasing as much as I can until the body says, okay, leave me alone. It might be 3 trapped emotions. It might be 8. I have no idea. And the last thing I want to share with you is this, is that I was like, come on, are these real energies? Are they really inside your body? Come on. And what's really interesting, Dr. Brad, in front of everybody, a conference of 3,000 people, so let me show you how real a trapped emotion is. And he says, okay, we found anger. And he's like, where is anger at? And he started muscle testing from a distance. He says, is it above your body? And the body says, no. Is it kind of like lower in the bottom near the belt area? The body said, yes. So he's like, is on the right side, left side? He was trying to find where exactly the trapped emotion was. And what he did is he says, now I want you to hold very strong. I'm not going to make a statement. I want you to hold very strong, and I want you to push up. And the guy was pushing up very strongly. And he says, now watch my hand. And he starts moving his hand closer and closer to the area that he muscle tested where the energy is. And as soon as he got like kind of, I don't know, he was like this close from the body, his arm went like all the way down. And he says, it feels like a light wind on your hand, like something's like a cold little wind blowing on your hand. He's like, that's how a trapped emotion feels. So and then as soon as he gets away from it, all of a sudden his arm gets stronger and stronger. But as soon as he touches it, for whatever reason, his arm goes down. He's like, whenever you touch a trapped emotion, the body goes automatically weak. So this is a very real thing. He's doing quantum healing. This is the future of medicine. And even my father, who's an oncologist, he read the whole body code manual and like a novel in like 2.5 weeks. And he told me, he says, I have no way to say this, but this man is very inspired. And for my dad, who is anti-holistic health, and owned his own practice for 30 years, for him to say this man is inspired, I think there is something to that. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think it's, excuse me, just fascinating for people to hear more about how this all works. And thank you for clearing bitterness, which I, of course, didn't know I had. So a little bit more about the muscle testing, because this has always been sort of my bugaboo. I've tried different techniques over the years, and there's, as you say, that one in the ring, daisy chain, and you can find different ones. And if you were to get the book, you find the explanation for all of this and how to do this, how to work with yourself, how to work with other people. Obviously, the training to become certified is much more intensive than what you get in a book, but you can start learning how to do this yourself. But the muscle testing has always thrown me, because I've never, ever trusted that what I was getting was a true result versus the result I wanted to be true. How do you get away from that? How do you get to the point where it's just second nature? You don't doubt yourself anymore. Is it simply just practice, and you're testing yourself against other people and seeing how many of you get the same result, and then you just have more confidence over time? Or
you know what? You answered your own question. Anything that you've done in life that you're very good at, you are very horrible at. And Dr. Brad is also, he says he used to use too much force when he first got started, too much force, and his fingers would hurt, and that's because he was nervous of the same thing. And is this me, or is this? Now, he said the spirit that you want to have when you're working with someone is very important. In fact, Dr. Missouri Moto, who wrote Messages in Water, he said, my favorite crystal, water crystal, the whole theory, well, not even theory, it's science that you can, there's crystals that show up when you freeze water into certain words attached to the flask or the cup. He basically said that his favorite was love and gratitude. And it's really interesting that in the certification process for Dr. Brad, he says that whenever you're working with someone, make sure you have love for them and make sure that you're grateful that you have some way to impact them. He said that type of spirit is very, very important. And so that's number one. I think it's what's your spirit like? What are your intentions in even healing? Number two, he said that he would practice maybe 100 times a day for about 2 weeks. So maybe 30 times in the morning, 30 times at lunch, and then 40 times at night. And if you do it long enough, and maybe even have a list of things you test. My name is, how old am I? Where do I live? No, I don't live there. Okay, I live here. Okay. If you do that long enough for 2 weeks, you'll get it. But everyone struggles. I struggled. All practitioners struggled. If they didn't struggle, they're lying. It's really, it's something that you acquire after a lot of practice. So, yeah.
Thank you. That makes sense, because some people would be eager to maybe start looking into this on their own, and then that's the barrier that they run up against. So clearly, I gave up too soon.
No. And to add to that too, just letting you know, is sometimes it's something subconscious in their mind that may be preventing them. I've worked with other practitioners that are like, I don't have confidence in muscle testing. So then what I would do, and maybe we can segue to the body code a little bit, is I would do in the body code. There's a beautiful thing where they're called alignment sessions. And Dr. Brad said one of the biggest things that he said on stage that just blew my mind. And I was looking around to see if anyone else's brains was on the concrete too. But for me, when he said it, I was like, that is the most powerful statement I've ever heard in my life. And he said, everything that is wrong with your life is just an energetic misalignment. And I remember taking notes. I'm like, did he say everything? And like the concept of the word everything, it really, if you really know what it means, for example, what you could say is your problem is, for example, let's say a child says, I have social anxiety, right? So then I would make up an affirmation statement. What's the flip side of it? I would say, I feel very comfortable meeting with people in large crowds, right? And as soon as I would say it to the kid would be like, no. I'm like, I know it's but let me muscle test you how much your body believes that statement. Your body to the decimal point will tell you, I'm at 32%.579. It'll tell you where it's at. Why does that matter to me? Well, because if I go into the body code, which I'll mention real quick, body code is something that Dr. Brad developed. That's the most advanced healing system on the planet, period. In fact, I've worked with Reiki healers, theta healers, NLP practitioners, EFT practitioners. As soon as they see the body code and see that it has over 200 hyperlinks to it, and has every aspect of the body, physical, emotional, and spiritual all in there, it is actually mind-blowing. And that's what my father was looking at, going like, man, this guy covered every ground. And he was just amazed. He's like, even nutrition's in here. And he's like, yeah, it was interesting. Like, so what I would do is I would say, I'm very comfortable meeting with crowds or whatever. And then I would go into the body code and muscle test, like, should I work on the right-hand side, left-hand side? So you'll hear a body code practitioner say left, right. And they're going through the graphs that Dr. Brad created, and we're finding the imbalance that's making that person have social anxiety. Once we release it, then guess what happens? The percentage moves up. And in fact, what's really interesting, Dr. Brad, and to get more complex in the body code, things aren't that simple. Someone who has autism is in a simple situation. But if you release enough imbalances in the body, we're not going to say we cure autism, but if you release enough imbalances, for example, it might say you have a toxicity in your body. It's like well, where did that come from? Or I'm sorry, let's go run a little bit more back. Let's say you have food toxicity in your body, right? Where did it come from? So then I would muscle test and go, okay, it's from prions. Prions, a mutated protein. What makes a mutated protein? Heavy metals. Okay, you have silver in your body, or you have cadmium in your body, or something going on, aluminum in your body. And I go, well, where does aluminum come from? It goes all the way down. Vaccine toxicity, 3 years old. You see what I'm saying? So Dr. Brad talks about how you have to keep asking, is there an underlying cause for that? Underlying cause. He says, go all the way down as deep as you can find it, because if you don't, you're kind of removing just the surface problem and not all the way to the root problem. And that's where real healing starts happening, because the body says, okay, and then it just domino effects up all the way to the top, and then now the body's healing completely in that area. And so that's what I love about the body code, is you can create these affirmation statements and do alignment sessions as well. So
yeah, it's absolutely fascinating. So again, the really neat aspect of this is that if your kid is really being defiant, not interested in meeting with a practitioner, the practitioner can work through you instead. So you don't need their kind of their conscious okay, although you're always asking if their body is okay or if their higher self is okay with you working with them.
And I think too that the creators set it up in a way that the parent kind of knows best usually. And so it's like, when you're 6 years old, 7, I mean, what do you know? And
right.
So the mother's like, I know what my son's dealing with, and if you can help me out. So it's been very beautiful that, and here's the kind of thing too, and people might say this too, maybe the emotion code is just a placebic effect. That might be what someone's thinking right now while they're hearing my voice. And I want to tell you, how can it be placebic effect if the child starts improving their grades, having high self-confidence, and the children and the mother and the father, who are both skeptical, start seeing very huge noticeable differences, like food aversion changing, sleeping better at night. Even babies who are 2 years old that they didn't like being held longer than 15 minutes can now hold them for 2 hours. There's no placebic effect there. In fact, I even worked with, I think last month I did a special promotion where I worked with a bunch of dogs and cats, and I worked with maybe 20 dogs, and the emails that have been coming to me in response to the change, trust me, a dog owner does not want to lie about an improvement on their dog unless it really happened. It helps no one, and so it's kind of a beautiful thing that you can work with animals, you can work with children, you can work with adults, and that there is no placebic effect. It's actually real energy healing. So
I know we don't have a whole lot of time left. Can you tell us a little bit about the heart wall and what that is and what the implications are for removing it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the heart wall is the greatest discovery in energy healing, was claimed by Dr. Bradley as such. And me being a very skeptical person, I approached him in his home and I said, come on, of course you're going to call it the greatest, discovery in energy healing because you created it. So I'm going to go discover something and I'm going to call it the greatest thing of all time too. I was making fun of him a little bit. But then when I started working with PTSD veterans and seeing them change and lose trauma, I was like, this is real. Like, this is a real, when you start seeing that type of change, this is real. So what is the heart wall? Well, the mother, I'll tell you real quick, the background, the wife, Jean Nelson, she was having a dream, and Dr. Brad thought it was a very inspired dream. And so he was trying to like kind of translate and be like, I wonder what this means. They were trying to figure it out. What happened to Dr. Brad is he went back to his office, and then he had what he calls a waking vision. And he says it in his webinar. If you look up heart wall, like everything you need to know about the heart wall on YouTube, there's a whole hour webinar on there. And he talks about this vision that he has. And what happens is he looks on the ground and the floor starts changing beneath him. And he says, he's like, I'm not on psychedelics. I don't do those kind of things. And I know what my office looks like. I know that I was awake. And he really believes it was a divine manifestation. What happened was the floor started changing, and it was this beautiful intact wooden floor. There were no dents in it, no nothing on it. And he just kept hearing a voice saying to him that your wife's heart is underneath that floor. Now, his wife suffered with depression and some symptoms of PTSD. She always felt like she was always looking outside in her whole life. And she told him about that. But she really didn't tell him like the specifics of her childhood yet until he came back and said, I had this vision. She's like, you had a vision? It's like, yeah, let me tell you what it was about. And then she says, well, I don't know how to explain that. And he says, well, let me muscle test you. So for the first time in history, using applied kinesiology, which like I said, has been around for decades, he asked, do you have a heart wall? And for the first time ever in history, the arm answered yes. So that was the beginning of the discovery of the heart wall. And what he found out, basically in one quick sentence, what is the heart wall for? It's basically the safety mechanism your body created to prevent you from dying from broken heart syndrome. Now, broken heart syndrome 30 years ago was considered definitely hoopla in the medical field. Now, if you went to like, a Mayo Clinic cardiologist and asked them about broken heart syndrome, he would say that's a real thing because they don't like to combine emotional things with science and medical stuff. But in regards to broken heart syndrome, I'm sorry, you're going to have to mention it's emotionally triggered. So the cardiologist say, well, what causes it? And then he'd be like, well, emotional stress at work, divorce, death in the family, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, bullying, self-abuse. There's all of these different things that cause specifically trauma in the heart area. And your heart feels like it's breaking. It feels like it's heavier or, just this feeling. Sometimes it's physical. Some people, they don't receive a physical manifestation of it, but their heart is still, the tendons are being stretched inside the heart. Some people feel it, some people don't. What's interesting is that no one knows up to now what stops the heart from hurting. And that's where Dr. Brad says that he found out more information, that the trapped emotions in your body, remember I told you there's around 300 to 400 trapped emotions, it actually takes a shaving of that energy and places it over the heart to protect it from not breaking. And so all of a sudden the heart stops hurting due to this little, it's almost like an onion kind of layer over the heart. And depending on what you're experiencing, let's say it's like really bad sadness that affects the heart, it'll look for the trapped emotion of sadness and place it over the heart. There'll be an age attached to it, and then it'll keep adding to it. That's why when I work with people and start removing these heart walls, there's an age and there's emotion, and they tell you, oh yeah, there was something very traumatizing around that time. And like, how did you know that? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I think so fascinating too is that these heart walls can be made of different things, right? So that it's, and of course this isn't literally, but
right.
That it's a bramble of rose thorns, or it's a metal, or it's splintered wood, or I don't know. I mean, I don't know how many different things you've come up with. Or do you need to know what it's made of to release it?
Great question. So the answer is no. First of all, when Dr. Brad found out about this vision and all those things like that, the last thing he wants to do is to increase skepticism and believability. And what would add to that? It'd be like, yeah, you have candy over your heart. He makes a joke about it all the time. He's
okay,
like,
true. Good point. Yeah.
So he mentioned that recently in the conference. He just says, the last thing I want to do is like, it's already unbelievable that I had a vision. On top of that, now that's the reason why people have manifestations of depression, anxiety, PTSD. On top of that, I'm going to find out what it's made out of. But what's interesting is that you can find that out, but it's not necessary. There's also measurements you can do of it, where it's like a couple miles long or thickness long. It's not actually that long, but for whatever reason, the body just puts a measurement to it just to kind of gauge you on how much you have left to clear it. Now, Dr. Brad told me specifically in an email that he really doesn't care about the size of it, doesn't really care about the material of it. What he really cares about is just someone who knows how to properly muscle test and just ask, do you still have one? Do you have a heart wall? Yes. Okay, can we release one right now? Yes. And just keep asking, can we release another one? Can we release another one? Can we release another one? And we're just going through trauma. And then what happens is there'll be a point where it says, can I release another one? But it says, no. And then then you just say, okay, do you still have one? Yes. Okay. Till next time, my friend, we'll see each other in like 2 days from now. We'll go back to the heart wall and keep doing it. And so sometimes it takes with children, it could be literally like 1 or 2, maybe 3 sessions, the most. It's not a lot. With adults, it's maybe like 5 or 6, where it takes sessions to kind of clear their heart wall. And I'll just mention this real quick. I know we're running short on time here, but I'll just mention the 5 symptoms of the heart wall. What happens when you start building your heart wall? Number 1 is low energy and low immune system. That's number 1. Number 2 is indecisiveness of your mission in life. This like fog about what am I supposed to be doing with my life? The more trauma in the heart, the harder it is to find that mission. And maybe you might be like, well, I already know my mission. I already know what I'm supposed to be doing. Well, it's mentally confirmed, but not confirmed by the heart. If it's confirmed by the heart, you'll feel more happiness, joy, and elation. That's number 2. Number 3 is desensitized heart. A lot of children right now that are having issues is because they have a desensitized heart. You're giving them love and affection, but they just don't feel it. They see it, but they don't feel it.
Yeah, that's huge. The
That's
ability to feel that love and hold it within themselves.
Yeah, exactly. That's number 3. Number 4 is their love language gets twisted. So for example, you say something, it's now proven fact, the Heart Math Institute says that, that your heart has a stronger electromagnetic frequency than the brain. So, and they've measured that it can go between 10 to 12 feet. Dr. Brad kind of slides in a comment in there during his webinar. Like it's kind of a little sneak attack where he says, by the way, if you know anything about electromagnetic frequency, it actually never ends. So technically they've measured 10 to 12 feet, but that doesn't mean it doesn't go beyond that, you see? And so he's saying that if you're sending a message with good intent, that what'll happen is let's say the child's communicating with the father, they'll say something out of good intention, but then the dad will get offended and be like, why are you saying that, son? From that. And what happened is that he had good intentions the whole time, but because the heart is communicating through these walls, then the brain gets offended and gets like that. That's why a lot of contentions in the home is due to people sending these love blanks through their heart. That's what's happening. And the 5th one is abundance and wealth. Obviously, children don't have to worry about that. But when they start going to high school and they're trying to get their job and things like that, start struggling with finances. They don't know why.
Well, but abundance could have to do with abundance of happiness or love or fun or
exactly.
So there's all sorts of abundance.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And so, but those are the 5 main symptoms. And if you have those 5 positive things working for you, it's very hard also to have depression, anxiety. If you're feeling love from people around you all the time, try to have depression. If you actually feel it, And so that's, it's the greatest discovery. And any child that I work with, I usually work with their heart wall first, because a lot of the symptoms that the parent's complaining about is really just their desensitized heart. Is really what it is.
So before we talk a little bit about how people can work with you, how you mentioned it's maybe 2 or 3 sessions for a child to work to dissolve a heart wall. Mm-hmm. Is that, I don't want to say permanent, because obviously there can be new insults, new emotional things that come up, but does the body then sort of adjust to that new normal? Yeah. Of being open, of being balanced, of being in equilibrium, all that good stuff.
Yeah, the body doesn't want to create another heart wall. Once it's recognized and cleared. However, for example, I cleared my heart wall back in April 16th. I grew one, just like 1 or 2 layers, when my friend passed away, and their family wouldn't allow me to work on him while he was in a complete coma. So I was shaking. And I felt totally helpless. And then I asked myself in the car, I'm like, did I create a heart wall? There it was, And it was helplessness. I couldn't help my friend, you see? So I released it for myself immediately, because I'm a practitioner. I'm not going to leave me with that heart wall there. But how could I have stopped that? It wouldn't. It's just trauma. It's just I was going through trauma. And so yeah, it can come up. But I also, you can give this shield that kind of protects the child, so the negative things don't really affect him as much, but allows love and positive energies in. See, the wall actually does have a benefit. It protected you, so your heart doesn't break. So it's kind of a caveat. It helps you, but then it hurts you, because then love doesn't go in that wall. This shield that I give children, it allows love in, but then it closes negative out. See, that's the real wall that we need. We don't need that other wall where it blocks everything out. But unfortunately, that's how the body starts. It does that.
That sounds great. So I know you have to run off to start meeting with other clients, but can you give us just a little bit of? I know you were willing to offer some complimentary sessions, which is very generous. And we can include links, but do you want to just tell people briefly what that is?
Yeah, so basically, it's just I offer people an hour session. Usually, if they're an adult, sometimes I meet with the adult first. It's an hour session where I can meet with them online or on the phone. With if you have a child that you want to volunteer, I can actually work with 2 children in 30 minutes. So if you ever go on it's a Calendly link for an appointment, you'll notice that it says 30 minutes child. If you have 2 children, I can fit them both in there 15-15. And then, our practice is called Coding Alternative. So you can look us up like codingalternative.com, or you can look up on Facebook. It's a very easy way to reach me too, Coding Alternative on Facebook, and you'll find us there. And we have over close to 300 5-star reviews in less than about a year and a half. And so you can read some testimonials of people that I've worked with, animals that I've worked with. I mean, just you'll see kind of like, how people are responding to it. So.
Well, that's great. I wish we had more time because this is fascinating and there's so much more to say, but I really appreciate your time. Hopefully people have gotten a glimpse into the potential that that the body code and the emotion code offers. And of course, that the passion that you bring to this work, which I also very much appreciate. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks, Alison. I really appreciate it. So.
All right, then. Take care. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. That's it for now. Bye-bye.